Welcome to the last week of Philosophy 100. This week, there are no, let's see, there's a quiz that covers material from last week from Philosophy of Mind, but there's not going to be any more readings or any more quizzes after this week. There is a final extra credit piece of homework that if you want to try to improve your grade, feel free to write out that, and then hopefully I'll have everybody's grades from the third paper posted soon enough. All right, so for this week, we're going to be discussing the philosophy of language, and my plan is to give you this short little lecture. Hopefully, you'll have the chance to watch it. I want to keep it short and sweet so that people will watch it, and then you can show up if you would like on Friday at 2 p.m. I'll be having a live lecture once again, like I did last week, to discuss some more issues in the philosophy of language and just celebrate the end of the term. All right, so here we go. Philosophy of language, a very short introduction. So you might think, well, what the heck is the philosophy of language? Um, and to sort of get you in the mindset for what philosophy of language studies, I just want you to think about a couple of these questions. Have you ever questioned what exactly it is that words mean? I mean, obviously, words have meanings, and the meanings seem pretty clear to us, right? We understand words, but what the heck is a meaning, anyways? Like, what is it for a word, which is some kind of, you know, thing that is uttered or written down? It's kind of got a shape or a sound, right? What is it for a word, for a shape or a sound to have a meaning? And, you know, how, in what way does the meaning go beyond the shape and the sound? How exactly does communication happen, right? So when I'm talking through this, computer recording in this video, you are understanding the words that I'm saying. How the heck does that work, right? I mean, I'm just making sounds over here, but somehow you are picking up those sounds and organizing them in such a way that you understand everything that I am saying. It's not like I have a direct link between my brain and your brain that somehow is beaming things in there. No, you know English, and I am speaking English, and somehow you are able to understand English words. What is truth? What is truth? What is falsity? What is it? What is it for a sentence to be true or a theory to be true? These are issues that philosophers of language actually think a lot about, right? Because whatever truth is, whatever really is true, it has to do with language. It has to do with, what's going on when a statement or an utterance or a belief of some sort is actually correct or incorrect. And finally, and then also, not finally, but just, one among many things. What is logic? What is it for something to be logical? What is it for like a set of sentences to be an argument that works in a logical way, that is logically valid or logically sound? What exactly goes on when we're reasoning about things in particular ways? What is the difference between good reasoning and bad reasoning when it comes to reasoning using language, right? Reasoning using arguments, reasoning using sentences. Philosophers of language tend to study all of these things, and they do it by doing some of these things here, right? So, what do philosophers of language do? Well, sometimes they break sentences and words down into their meaningful parts and then try to give theories about those meaningful parts, about how those meaningful parts hang together, about how across a language things of certain sorts mean different kinds of things, and what goes into those things all together. That, like, how you get the meanings of words making up the meanings of sentences, right? If you've got a sentence that's got a bunch of different words, it seems like, so all of the words have their own meanings, but each of the words go together in a way and combine into the sentence. And then the sentence itself has this larger meaning, right? So the word means something, and then the sentence means something bigger. And the sentence meaning is somehow made up of the word meanings. Philosophers of language tend to give theories of the different levels of meaning in language. That is the syntax, the semantics, and the pragmatics of language. Syntax has something to do with basically like grammar, what kinds of sentences are correct and what kinds of sentences are incorrect, what kinds of orderings of words are correct and what kinds of orderings of words are incorrect. So here's like a really funny example. You totally understand the sentence, the cat is on the mat, as a correct ordering of the words, the cat is on and mat. But if I say it this way, cat the on is mat the, you're gonna be like, what? It's confusing. The sentence doesn't sound right. However, I used exactly the same words, right? I used only the same words that are, in the correct order in the cat is on the mat, but I put them in the wrong order. And so when I put them in the wrong order, you have this sort of like automatic response, like, hey, that's not a right sentence. That sentence isn't correct. That's not an English sentence. Well, why isn't it an English sentence, even though it's got a bunch of English words in it? And the reason is because the syntax is all wrong. There's a specific ordering that goes on in English sentences, and you have to follow that ordering. Otherwise, you're speaking incorrectly. You're not speaking English right. Semantics is classically speaking the theory of the meanings of words. Like, so when somebody says, oh, that's just semantics, usually that means, oh, the people are just arguing about the meanings of the terms that they're using. And pragmatics is another kind of theory of meaning that goes beyond semantics and syntax. Pragmatics has more to do with things like, sometimes body language or like emphasis. So if you say something with a particular amount of emphasis on a word, then oftentimes, the word that you express has the same meaning as always, but the emphasis allows the hearer to sort of infer some further meaning. So take, for example, the sentence, Harry and Sally got married and had a baby. Or Harry and Sally had a baby and got married, right? You take that sentence, actually those two sentences, they basically mean the same thing. Harry and Sally got married and had a baby. Harry and Sally had a baby and got married. It just tells you that they got married and that they had a baby. But if I order it in the right way and then I put emphasis in the right way, it sort of tells you something else, right? Harry and Sally had a baby and got married. That sort of tells you, right? Like I didn't add any information. I just put weird emphasis on the sentence. And it tells you something like, I disapprove of the fact that, and maybe this is information encoded in this, that they got pregnant and then had a baby before they got married, right? Now, hopefully, nobody worries too much about that anymore these days, except for certain religious groups. But yeah, that kind of information can be, inferred, and you can pick up on that information through a kind of meaning that is often called pragmatic meaning. Philosophers of language also argue about what particular words mean, and then when two words or phrases actually have the same meaning, that is, that they're synonyms. And they also like to think about the relationships between language and things like knowledge or power structures, mental representations, and metaphysical facts. So it's interesting to worry about the relationship between language and knowledge. Recently, people worry a lot about the relationship between language and power structures, like how slurs work when you talk down to somebody or make fun of them or say something bad about them. There's lots of interesting issues in the philosophy of language that relate to all these. Today, though, what I'm going to give you is just really a quick rundown on what you might think of as the simplest theory in the philosophy of language, and a good reason to think that it's wrong. And then we'll talk even more about it next time. So what is a theory in the philosophy of language? Well, here's a theory of the meanings of words, right? So this is like the simplest theory you could possibly imagine. If you were looking at sentences and words and you were asking yourself, what the heck does that word mean? And you were like, okay, I'm going to give a theory that covers all words in the entire English language, just because, you know, we're just focusing on English here. And I'm going to give you a theory about what they all mean. Maybe the first thing that you jump to would be, okay, well, what a word means is just what a word stands for or what a word refers to. The meaning of a word is just the thing, the object or the property that the speaker or of the language means to be referring to or expressing. So you could say, okay, well, okay, so like when I'm talking about my cat, when I say the cat, the thing that I'm referring to is the cat. And so the meaning of the phrase the cat here in quotes is just my cat, right? Or the phrase, the name Donald Trump, right? The meaning of the name Donald Trump, right? We're talking about the name now in the quotes. We're not talking about the person, but the meaning of the name just is the person, right? He got named that name, and so when we're talking about him, we can use that name to talk about him, and so the meaning of the name is just the individual. Similarly, with, you know, the color red, the word red, when I talk about it, you know, when I talk about red, when I talk about the color red, I use the word red, and the word red maybe just means the color red, right? That's just what the word red means. That's just its meaning. It's the thing that it stands for. It's the color. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward, seems plausible enough as a theory, right? One thing that's worth being clear here on is that the theory is not subjective, but intersubjective. What do I mean by intersubjective? Well, the word meanings, the meanings of words, do not depend on individuals. That is, they don't depend on what just some individual thinks that they mean when they are using a word, right? No, it depends on a group of individuals. It depends on a whole bunch of individuals that are in a sort of agreement about what a word means. You can't really get a word meaning. You can't just sort of make up your own meanings to words, right? You have to actually get somebody else to agree to use a word in the same way that you're using it before you can even use the word in the right way to get to have that meaning, right? Otherwise, like, you couldn't say that word with someone and have them understand what it is that you're trying to say. So for an example that, you know, different groups of individuals have control over the different meanings of words in particular languages, the word rot means one very different thing in English than it means in German. In English, you know, rot is related to rotting and, you know, fruit, vegetables, meats going bad. Whereas in German, the word rot just means red, right? It means what we mean when we say the word red. It means the color red. So languages are a public thing. And intersubjectivity is sort of like, you know, languages aren't objective. They're not things that exist apart from human beings. Human beings invented languages, and we go around changing the language all the time, right? We invent new words or start to mean new things with different words. But the thing is that they have to, you know, when we mean a new thing with when we change a word meaning, it has to catch on among the society. Otherwise, it's not going to go anywhere. So that creates what's called intersubjectivity, which means that, you know, word meanings depend upon all of us, but they don't depend upon any individual one of us. Word meanings, yeah, and languages in the end, they are public things, right? They're things that are spoken and messed with in the public square, as well as the meanings of those languages. This adds a little bit of a complication, right? So you might think like, okay, well, what's the meaning of a word? Like, how do you go about finding out the meaning of a word? Well, you go and you find a dictionary, right? You go and you look in a dictionary, and the dictionary tells you the meaning of a word. Well, how do dictionaries get made? Well, actually, people that make dictionaries, they go around asking individuals what they think words mean. So they actually, like, you know, go and do the intersubjective evidence gathering. They go and ask a bunch of people, what do you think this word means? And then, you know, they write down the answer, and then they take the most common responses and compile them in certain ways into dictionaries, and then that's how you get a dictionary, right? So why aren't the meanings of words just their dictionary definitions? Well, one thing that's at least initially a problem is that that doesn't really explain to us what a meaning is, right? What is a dictionary definition? Well, a dictionary definition is just more words, right? You look in a dictionary, you don't find the meaning of a word, you find more words. More words, well, that doesn't give you a meaning, that just gives you more words. So it seems like we've got a problem there. Similarly, in some dictionary definitions, they don't even give you the meaning. They just send you to another word that supposedly has the same meaning. But that's not even always the case. So what's this issue here? Well, with dictionaries and dictionary definitions, we can't just have the meanings of words be dictionary definitions, because you sort of already need to understand some basic words that are used in dictionary definitions in order to even start to understand dictionary definitions. Right. So definitions or dictionary meanings cannot really be the end all be all for the matter of word meanings. There's got to be some more underlying basic word meanings that you already know. And that if you already know those, then you can come to understand the meanings of definitions in the dictionary. So, what kinds of things are those more basic word meanings? Well, you might think, as the naive theory says, well, it's just whatever those things refer to, right? And that's really obvious, right? So that's in a way that's how we learn language as children, right? Or how you learn a language when somebody is teaching you a new language. They say a word to you, and then they point at the thing that the word refers to. So, you say Kyle and you point at me. You say Donald Trump and you point at Donald Trump. You say kitty cat and you point at the kitty cat, right? That's how people pick up on language. That's how they learn them. So maybe, the meaning of the word is just the thing that the word refers to. And then if you get enough of those and you come to recognize enough of those, then maybe you can get up to the level of a dictionary definition or a dictionary meaning. So this leads us back to the simple theory, the naive theory. The meaning of a word or a phrase is just what it refers to in the language being spoken, right? So we've got, the phrase, the president of the United States. That just refers to Donald Trump. And so the meaning of the phrase just is Donald Trump, right? Or the next president of the United States. That phrase refers to Joe Biden. And so maybe it just means Joe Biden. That's what the meaning of the phrase is. And then, the professor of philosophy 100 is me, Kyle. So maybe the meaning of that phrase just is me. Is this right? Is this just what meanings amount to? Is meaning just a form of reference? Well, there's a couple of problems, and the first one I think is manageable. The second one is very difficult, and so let's jump into them. Well, the first kinds of problems that there are things like predicates and logical symbols, and it becomes a little bit more obvious when you start looking at examples. So if you take a sentence like "all dogs are mammals," what does the phrase "are mammals" mean? In this sentence, it's the predicate of the sentence, right? We've got the subject, all dogs, and the predicate, are mammals. And it predicates being a mammal of all dogs. But is there something that the phrase "are mammals" refers to, as the naive theory suggests? The naive theory, remember, says that the meaning of a word is just what it refers to. Does "are mammals" refer to anything? Not obviously. So what in the world could a sentence predicate refer to, right? What could a sentence, what could the predicate of a sentence actually stand for in any real sense, right? Here's a list of predicates, right? Are mammals, or is red, or hates broccoli. All of these things are, they're often in sentences as the kinds of things that follow a subject. And if they are meaningful, then it seems like they've got to, be standing for something if the naive theory is right. So the naive theory can say, okay, well, how about let's just say that the property that's being expressed of the things being predicated of is the thing that these phrases, refer to or mean. So "are mammals" expresses the property of being a mammal, "is red" expresses the property of being red, "hates broccoli" expresses the property of hating broccoli. Does that solve our problem? Yeah, maybe. We can try it. We can try it out for now. And so now, if we take these two kind of parts of our theory, right, that phrases that like refer to people. It just the meaning is just the individual, and predicates, the second half of sentences usually, those just express properties. They refer to properties that are being predicated of individuals. And then now we can get what the meanings of sentences are, right? The meanings of sentences, the whole meaning of whole sentence, often called a proposition or a statement, um, is, so we've got a sentence. The sentences are subject predicate, and subject predicate sentences have meanings, and the meanings involve the objects being referred to and the properties being predicated of those objects. And that's just what a proposition is, right? So the idea here is like, a sentence like the president lost the election. Basically, the meaning of that sentence is just, Donald Trump and the property of having lost the election, right? So, and that's just what's going on there, right? We've got the phrase the president that refers to Donald Trump, and we've got the property, or we've got the predicate lost the election, which refers to the property of having lost the election. And that sentence is true just in case Donald Trump has the property of having lost the election, which he does. So because Donald Trump lost the election, the sentence is true because of what it means, right? It means that Donald Trump lost the election, and so, or that Donald Trump has the property of losing the election, and he does have that property, and so now we've got a true sentence, right? It would be false if we did something else, right? Suppose the sentence said that the next president of the United States lost the election. Well, that wouldn't really make a whole lot of sense, but yeah, sort of. If we said Joe Biden lost the election, then the sentence, the proposition expressed would be Joe Biden and the property of having lost the election. But that would be a false sentence. Why? Because Joe Biden doesn't have that property. That's how, you get sentences that have meanings, sometimes that are true and sometimes that are false. Similarly here, right, really even maybe simpler example, the apple is red. The phrase the apple refers to, the apple that's in front of you, hopefully, and is red refers to the property of redness. And so the meaning of the phrase, the sentence, the apple is red, just is these two things, the apple and the property of redness. I use these little side corners to indicate that we're talking about the meaning of a sentence. All right, so now on to the bigger problem with the naive theory. The bigger problem is pretty difficult to deal with, and because it's so difficult, we're going to turn to Superman. Actually, Superman is the problem for the naive theory. At least, he's one of them. There's lots of issues with similar people, and you'll see why in a second. So we turn to Superman. We turn to the story of Superman. Hopefully, you know at least a little bit about the story of Superman. And here's sort of the basic things that you probably need to know, right? We know that Superman is Clark Kent. We know that Superman can fly. That doesn't actually matter that much right now, but it may later. We know that Clark Kent is the mild-mannered reporter at the Daily Planet. And we know that Lois Lane is in love with Superman, and that Lois Lane does not know that Clark Kent is Superman, right? That's part of the whole story. Superman saves the day, saves Lois Lane, but he before he did that, he jumped into an old phone booth and changed into a Superman costume. All right, so why is this a problem? Well, the naive theory has this problem because of this kind of issue, right? So according to the naive theory, take this sentence. Clark Kent is identical with or identical to the mild-mannered reporter of the Daily Planet. He is, right? That's true. That sentence is true. Clark Kent is identical with the mild-mannered reporter of the Daily Planet. Now, the proposition that is expressed by that sentence is Clark Kent, the property of being identical to, and Clark Kent, right? Why? Because the identity gives you a predicate, but the mild-mannered reporter at the on the right-hand side of the sentence just refers again to Clark Kent, right? So we've got Clark Kent, we've got the predicate of being identical to, which is a kind of relational predicate. It relates to things. It's like saying to the right of or to the left of, right? It just you put two different subjects into the sentence, and then you've got the predicate being the thing that relates the two subjects. So here we've got, again, Clark Kent, the property of identity, and Clark Kent, because in the first case, we've just got the name Clark Kent, and in the second case, we've got the mild-mannered reporter, which just refers to Clark Kent. All right, now why is this a problem? Well, because actually the phrase Clark Kent is identical to the mild-mannered reporter, according to the naive theory, has the same meaning as the phrase Superman is identical to the only earthbound Kryptonian. It's also basically, what is it? It means the same thing as, Superman is the only person that can fly. Superman is the, alien loved by Lois Lane is identical with Superman, or Clark Kent is Superman. So on and so forth. Like, all of these sentences actually say exactly the same thing according to the naive theory. Why? Well, because the meaning of each of these phrases, where you've got the word Superman, or you've got the word Clark Kent, or you've got the phrase the mild-mannered reporter, or the man that's faster than the speeding bullet and can leap tall buildings and outrun a locomotive or whatever. Each of those phrases just refers to Clark Kent or Superman or whoever, whatever you think is his official, Kal-El, right? That's his initial name at the beginning of the story of Superman. It just refers to that guy. And so if the meaning is just that guy, then, that's just what the proposition expresses. It just says that that guy, Clark Kent, is, has the property of identity, is identical with Clark Kent, right? That's what that says. So why, again, is this a problem? Well, oh, whoops, I forgot to change this. Sorry. If the phrase, the only earthbound Kryptonian and the phrase the mild-mannered reporter have the same meaning, we run into a problem. Actually, we don't even have to worry about that. Let's just say if the phrase, if the word, the name Clark Kent and the name Superman have the same meaning, then we run into a problem. And here's why. Look at this sentence. Sentence 1, Lois Lane believes that Clark Kent is the mild-mannered reporter. That is true. But what about sentence 2? Lois Lane believes that Superman is the mild-mannered reporter. Well, given the setup, 1 is clearly true, but 2 seems like it's got to be false, right? 2 must be false because Lois Lane, doesn't believe that Superman is Clark Kent. She doesn't believe that Superman is a mild-mannered reporter. So the issue, though, here is between 1 and 2, the only thing that we've switched is the name Superman and the name Clark Kent. And hopefully this is starting to lead you to see why this is a problem for the naive theory. This is a problem because if the names mean the same thing, that is, if they mean the same exact guy, then the 2 sentences should have exactly the same meaning. Let's go back. Lois Lane believes that Clark Kent is the mild-mannered reporter. Lois Lane believes that Superman is the mild-mannered reporter. There are no differences between these 2 sentences other than the name Clark Kent and the name Superman. So the 2 sentences, according to the naive theory, should have the same meaning, right? Because all that we've swapped out is a name for the same guy, and the name is the thing that refers to that guy. The issue, though, is if the 2 sentences have the same meaning, then they should definitely have the same truth value, right? I mean, if you say the same thing twice, if you have 2 sentences with the same meaning and one of them is true, it can't be that, that the next one is false. If 2 sentences mean the same thing, if they mean the same thing, then they've got to, if one is true, then the other one's true. If one is false, then the other one's false. It can't be that you have 2 sentences with the same meaning and one's true and one's false. That would be crazy. In any case of that, like you don't actually have sentences of the same meaning. So if 1 is true and 2 is false, then what does that tell us? Well, it tells us that it can't be the case that that these 2 sentences actually mean the same thing. They must not, in fact, mean the same thing. So let's look at this again. Lois Lane believes that Clark Kent is the mild-mannered reporter. Lois Lane believes that Superman is the mild-mannered reporter. The only difference between sentence 1 and sentence 2 is the name used in the middle, right? Clark Kent and Superman. But the name used is a name for the same person, right? Clark Kent is a name for Clark Kent and Superman is a name for Clark Kent. It's the same guy, different names. The names refer to the same person. And so on the naive theory, the meaning of the word is just what it refers to. So the sentence, the meaning of sentence 1 and the meaning of sentence 2 should be the same, right? That can't be right, however, because the sentences have different truth values. If the sentences have different truth values, but they mean the same thing, then something has gone wrong. If the naive theory is true and sentences 1 and 2 have the same meaning, then they should have the same truth value. But if we reject that sentences 1 and 2 have the same truth value, if we say, no, look, sentence 1 is true, but sentence 2 is false, we thereby have to reject that these two sentences have the same meaning. And if we reject that these two sentences have the same meaning, we have to reject the naive theory, meaning that we have to reject the idea that what a word means is just what a word refers to. We have to say, actually, words have meanings that are not just what they refer to. There's something more to the word's meaning than what it is that the word refers to. Words or phrases can refer, in this case, to the same thing without having the same meaning. And that would be basically what we have to say about sentence 1 and sentence 2. We have to say, ultimately, that the name Clark Kent and the name Superman do not share a meaning. They might share a reference. They refer to the same guy, but they mean different things. And in a sense, that kind of makes sense, right? Like if you think about it, when you think about Clark Kent, when you think about the meaning of the name Clark Kent, you think about this, guy wearing glasses and a suit that's hanging out at the Daily Planet as, a reporter waiting for some disaster to strike. And when you think about the name Superman, you think, your concept of Superman. You've got the guy in the cape with the red and the blue, and he's flying around and he's saving Lois Lane and saving the world, right? So if you think about meanings along those lines as more like related to your concept of the individual, then it seems clear as day that these two names have different meanings. But that's not what the naive theory said initially, right? The naive theory wasn't talking about concepts at all. The naive theory was saying the meaning of a name or the meaning of a word is actually just what that word refers to, not the concept of the thing that the word refers to. So on this view, and if we follow everything that has been talked about here, what we've now shown is that the naive theory of meaning, the naive theory of word meanings, is actually wrong. It can't be that the meaning of a word is just what the word refers to. It's got to be something other than what the word refers to, maybe something like the concept that is associated with the word in particular. All right, that wraps things up for this short introductory lecture to an issue in the philosophy of language. We're going to talk more about this in the next class and talk a little bit, I think, in the live class about the nature of belief and what the word believes means. All right. Have a great final week. I hope you have good luck on your final exams that you have. Be sure to take the final quiz on the philosophy of mind. And again, if you would like to, feel free to work on your extra credit writing assignment that will be due next Monday. It must be, there are no extensions on the extra credit assignment because grades are due in the middle of next week. So be sure, if you're going to write the extra credit writing assignment, that you have it turned in by Monday.